Technology gaps are things that are causing a lot of problems with us in our parent projects, and they're causing problems for us just helping one another out in life. It's not only isolated to people who are older, above 60 being that. Those of us that identify as younger, maybe under the ages down into our 40s and 50s, are also getting scammed at record levels. Today on the Present Dangers podcast, Joyce Petroski and I from R.O.S.E are going to break down some of those top scams that we're seeing with present dangers. So stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this. Plus a special guest appearance with founder of Catch AI, an awesome technology. He's going to walk us through what we can do to get in front of this and help our loved ones. Stay tuned for the Present Dangers podcast. We begin right now. And welcome to the Present Dangers podcast. And I'm Tony Sieber with Parent Projects, and I'm joined with Joyce Petroski of R.O.S.E. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks for being here again and doing another show with me.
Absolutely, yes. I love these.
I do too. I love learning what your head puts together. I mean, you've got all these experts that are out crawling the world, it seems like, and you guys are
right.
figuring out not just the latest and greatest, but you tend to take... they say knowledge kind of helps you get through stuff. When you know why, you can deal with a lot of how.
Exactly.
I think you understand a lot of the why these things are working and help people fight it really well.
Yeah,
so.
Knowledge is power.
Amen. And I'm looking forward to you sharing a little bit of that power here with the audience today, and
absolutely,
and helping us break through some of that.
All right.
So maybe just jumping right into some of the headlines, things that we've been talking about, kind of heading up. I thought one of the first places to start, or maybe the top scams that we see that are out
Sure.
there, and then we're going to have a special guest, obviously, mutual friend that
right.
That we both have really gotten to know and see that product here. Will be joining us in studio here shortly. Joyce, what do we say? What's the state of the situation here? What's the state and present dangers that we see?
So scams, they affect the 60 plus population a lot. They are the largest targeted population because of their philanthropic and trusting nature. And the world they grew up in was so much different than the world today.
Uh-huh.
But also the scammers, they're evolving. It's not the 15-year-old kid sitting in his parents' basement, trying to, steal your credit card or whatever, or take your identity. I mean, these are organized groups, and they are very good at what they do, and they will change things up, and they just keep evolving. And we really, education and awareness and how to protect yourself is really the tool that people need to combat this.
Why don't you talk to us about how R.O.S.E, your organization, how you guys tackle that and kind of open your eyes and help get that information out into the marketplace?
Right. So we have a program called Fraud Awareness and Protection Program. It's geared right now to the 60 plus, or we're in Arizona, so 55 plus, population. Really anybody can learn from it. And that program is, we do as many as we can in person, because we like it to be interactive. We want people asking questions. We want people telling us things that they've seen, whether they've gotten a phone call, an email, they were on a website, something.
Yeah.
And so we have a PowerPoint, that we go through, and when we give them the statistics that the FBI puts out every year on the elder fraud report, there's so many gasps in the room, because they just don't understand that it's this bad.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just what's reported.
Well, I have to imagine at some level that provides maybe a little bit of relief for those that have been scammed.
Well, exactly, because I think a lot of them think, they're the only ones.
Right.
And that's not the case. Exactly.
Right.
That's not the case. You could be sitting next to somebody in a restaurant, and there's a good chance that person was scammed. at some point, right?
Yeah.
But we talk about that, and then we go through some of the more the scams that affect that population more, that are targeted towards them. We don't go into a lot of detail, but we just give them an idea, like, as to how it works and why they do certain things. But then the most important part of the presentation is our resources and our tips and tools that we give to them. And we not only go over it with them, but they have a packet. It's now, I think, 12 or 14 pages. And it's things that they can make notes on, they can ask questions, they can then take home. Because scam prevention is not a one size fits all. You might do something different than I would do in your scam prevention, because we all have different things, and some things make sense to some people. They might be able to afford this, and maybe other people can't. So they can take it home, they can study it, they can read about it. And I need antivirus software. Okay, here's an article I need to read that tells me the pros and cons of the 10 best for the year, right?
Well, and then, you know what you're getting into, so you can start forming what that challenge is going to be. Yeah. One of the things I think is important, I hear, people look at this and they just expect, oh, it should be a nonprofit that can run and put all this stuff up and pay to provide all that education out there. The government provides some level of that, but really you create conversations to pull out the unreported in a lot of ways, which is not something that the current dynamic is set up to do really, really well, right?
Right.
So as that information comes in, your organization is able to get that into the hands. You have contacts, and you guys have the ability to get that into the hands to get some real guidance around that newest scam, how to respond to what it looks like.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
I think that's fantastic, especially when we talk about, I think later in the show, we'll talk about how a couple of these scams we talked about in the last episode now have evolved into, like, they're combining them.
Exactly.
And then cram a little AI, sprinkle a little of this in there.
Exactly. And now it's a whole new scam.
And it's a whole new scam. And that is, they take the best kind of what's working.
Exactly.
It is really tough. I mean, they have to be right once. You have to get it right every single time that you run into it. That is hard to defend. It is difficult to defend against.
Right.
Well, so let's talk about technology. One of the main things that we see is this technology gap is running fast. I mean, it is. And I think not just the technology gap, but it's obviously increasing. I think because personally, I think I see the pace of technology implementation.
Oh my gosh.
From the idea, we're here at Crown Studios at AZ Crown, and are surrounded by an awesome amount of great startups and organizations. And it is like, as fast as you can think through it, it is a sprint, and people are moving out the door really quickly with minimally viable products all the way up to ready for market products and technology within a year, 2 years. Like full development cycle, things that took us, half a decade to do before.
Right. And then when they get that to market, something new has
already come out.
And they're already working on the first enhancement to it, right?
Right.
It evolves, so much.
Well, and it speaks to a younger generation that is apt to go to the new generation of the phone, or the next generation of an iPad, and there's a lot that you think of that has to happen for that. You have to be conditioned to change out an iPad every 3 years, right? That's why it still works. Like, I've got iPads that are really, really old, but I also have, great computers that I can't use anymore. They won't connect to the application store, or they won't do this thing, so they don't function properly.
I just recently, last month, upgraded my iPhone.
Yeah.
I noticed it started working slower, and it wasn't, some of the apps weren't working really well, and it would take a day for it to tell me I had a voicemail, and so I guess they're up to 15 now.
Yeah.
And I had a 10.
Okay.
And so
that was like 9 months ago. Like,
right? And I'm like, I'm looking at the prices, and I'm like, wow.
I know.
I'm like, so what's the difference between a 14 and a 15? And it's like, really, it's just the camera. I said, my camera worked fine on the 10, so I'm going to go with the 14.
So you look at the cost of that technology change out, just the mentality. My parents, my grandparents especially, would never, like, they held on to the Cool Whip containers, right? I mean, for decades, right? We can use this for something, right?
Exactly.
If there is anything that just really sets my grandfather, well, we can use this for something. We'll use
Right.
this for something.
Right.
That doesn't lend well to the turnover and the rapid change of new
Today.
technologies.
Right.
Yeah, today.
Exactly.
So trying to catch up, I think I see older, not even just older generations, because really we're all aging together. Those of
We
us that
are.
aren't inclined to change a phone out as quickly,
Right.
or to move on or to grab that newest latest thing because we're comfortable
Exactly.
and we're trying to grow where we're planted.
That's me.
Right, right. Well, and me too. But you still that can leave you behind in the newest, latest,
Right.
maybe protections
Right.
or other things that sit out there, and not unwittingly. I don't think
Exactly.
the market intends to do that. I think it's just running so fast that it's leaving this.
It's hard for people to keep up.
Yeah.
You know?
So we're going to have on today here in just a moment. We're gonna bring in Clark Hoefnagels with Catch AI, founder of an awesome platform.
Yes.
You and I have got we've gotten a chance to take a peek at this thing
Right.
and what it can do as an add-on. He's just talking about just getting started from that,
Exactly. He is.
envisioning a better way to do things and to try to at least make us aware so we can work earlier and often. We can get involved earlier and
Right.
often, right?
Right. It's all part of the prevention.
What was your, you just kind of teeing that up. What was your base takeaway for Catch AI and what that looked like? What did you guys think from that perspective?
I loved it. Gmail is not my main email, but I do have it for a variety of different things. And so just seeing it be able to come up and identify my risk level with each email, it let me know, especially when it comes in red and it says scam, like, oh, I need to pay attention to this.
Yeah.
And so I think that's great. Even if the technology has recognized it as a scam, and then you open it up and you were expecting it, and you realize, okay, it's not. But what it does is it at least makes you aware, and it gives you that heightened sense of, I need to be very careful with this email when I open it to not click on anything.
Yeah. Well, and I think we're going to hear it straight from the founder of the organization that can talk to us here in a bit of other things even that they can do and how to involve other people and notify and work from some of that. So let's go ahead and welcome. We're going to welcome Clark Hoefnagels with Catch AI. Clark, hey brother, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Hi, Clark.
Hi, Joyce. Hi, Tony. Thanks for having me.
It's wonderful. So your ears must be burning because obviously we're talking technology, how fast it takes off, finding ways to get involved early and often, and you come into mind, and we just kind of teeing that up. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about Catch AI, what you guys are going after, and what the products do today, where you guys are at today?
Cool. Yeah. So we started down this road because of a scam experience. I think, like many of us, family member got scammed for $27,000, a really terrible event. And one of the things we realized as we were kind of picking up those pieces is that how it started with an email, was identifiable. There's key indicators that we can pick out. And with with generative AI and the kind of the leap that it has made over the past year or two, really believe that there was an opportunity to help protect people, to stop those scams at the point of contact with this technology. And so that's what we were really been going after, is how to stop scams at the point of contact.
So that is that notification as it comes through. How is it? You've got a new product. You're putting something new in. I got to imagine one of the first things that people are asking about are that compatibility with an older generation and their ease of being able to put stuff into play. You guys really tackled that you came at that from multiple different ways to really resolve and answer that question. Can you talk to us about what that looks like, and not just for Catch AI, but from a perspective of problem solving and bringing products to market that are age friendly?
Yeah, I think the one thing that we have learned about this audience, and honestly, most audiences, when it comes to security, is that they don't want to interrupt their workflow. They don't want to download a new app and do something different and have to log in here and do that. Right? That's why multi-factor authentication and two-factor authentication hasn't really been as widely adopted as it should, because it's friction. It adds like another thing that you need to do, and people don't want to do another thing. And so what we were thinking about when we were building this is, how do we kind of like lower that? How do we bring it to this security to them where they are right now? And so as we were kind of building that, we realized that Gmail had this great little functionality where you can put labels similar to like foldering. And so we had a couple different iterations on that, but that with basically understanding Gmail and how people wanted to use, we kind of put those things together to put the label right on the email where you're notified, and then you can take the action to really protect yourself and learn about how email threats are coming in.
That's a great way to follow the water, if you will, right? And just the way that water is flowing naturally where somebody wants to go, their intuitive process for there. I can see a lot of that too with how, discussions we've had. A lot of awareness and building awareness and reaching, and whatever your mission might be in the longevity services marketplace when you're trying to help aging families, you run into this challenge of people who are identifiable, like that they're ready and they fit and they should be out there, or they're ready for what you have to market out there, but they're just not ready to like tackle that first step or that first thing until the moment they are. And it sounds like what you've done here, Clark, is you guys have put together a product that can help them at the moment they're dealing with that thing. It's going to be there, and they can naturally follow the course of whatever they're going to do with that notification.
Yeah, exactly. Fit it in when they're ready.
So talk to us about where do you go with that? So you can identify the thing. We try to work to not just identify our scams, but now we want to know where to go. So what can a family member expect to experience if they've been able to help and a loved one's got this on? Let's say my mom's using this or my dad's using this. What can that experience look like so that I can help push in a little bit better? What would that look like?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that you would be able to do. One is that we know people have uncertainty, and sometimes they really want to ask their loved ones for help, and sometimes they're worried about being a burden. And one of the things that we provide is that within kind of the add-on on the side, there's a way to send it to our team for review for that second set of eyes. And that's really kind of a low lift way. It doesn't require any involvement, though the caregiver can be involved if they want. But for that aging adult to kind of take back their independence a little bit and own this. Right. And that's something that we've kind of heard a lot. People don't want the keys taken away, right?
Exactly.
They want to be empowered. They want the technology to work for them.
Right.
That's one important piece. The second one is we're really giving you information on the side around the next steps and why we labeled it a scam, to provide that education piece, which Joyce knows does a lot of great work there, right? That education is just so important to preventing scams. It's education as like the primary driver, and then technology to support where needed.
It's a great mix. How do you think the market's going to generally respond to something and being able to use products like this and others?
I think, Clark and his team have done a great job at making it user friendly.
Yeah.
So for instance, when you mentioned, Clark, about the multi-factor authentication, before you came on, I was telling Tony about it. It took me a long time to get a new phone. I went from an iPhone 10 to a 14, right? And when everything transferred over, this is what I've noticed over the last week is I have multi-factor authentication on everything that I can. And some of it, I'm using it through the Authenticator app. And the Authenticator app's not as easy as you would think it would be. And what I found is when I went to, I can't log into our credit card processing company right now. I have to call them because all of those ones I already had set up on my old phone didn't transfer over to the new one. And now it's like when I sign in, it wants me to go to the and and it's like, I can't get the barcode to scan to set it up unless I'm in the program, right? And I can't get in the program because it's not on my app. So I've got to call the company, right? And so that was very difficult. But what you said, like with your product is, and I really like, because I've tested it, the stuff you have on the right-hand side, it's also not very small print, you know? I didn't have to squint to read it. I didn't have to put it right up in front of my face or something to read it. I was able to just read it. You guys have it in large enough print in large enough font that I think a lot of older adults that might have some vision impairment, are going to be able to read it. And it's very user friendly. It was very user friendly, and we've had some conversations about it. And so I think the added piece that you guys add on there about, well, why did we identify this as a scam, I think is probably the most important part. Because if you don't have that and you're just telling somebody, well, we think it's a scam, then if they all of a sudden get a different email or they're on someone else's email, they're not going to know, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not there to tell them. But educating so then they know how to identify, I think is just fantastic. I think it's great. And then the opportunity that they can send it to you guys for further review is awesome too.
Clark, you're doing a great job of teaching them how to fish, man.
Thank you.
Tell us, where can families get more information on Catch AI, what you guys are doing? You guys are Gmail platforms now with an eye to the other mail platforms, but talk to us about those plans and where people can learn more about you and stay up and access the products.
Yeah, so we're at www.getcatch.ai, just how it sounds, GETCATCH. And yeah, send me an email if you're interested, even in just like learning more and thinking about it. You can email me at clark@getcatch.ai, Clark with no E.
Got it. Clark, Catch AI, hey, thank you so much for joining us today on the Present Dangers podcast and for helping us just get that much better at handling our parents and as they get a little bit older. Thanks, brother.
Right.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks,
Good luck to you
Clark.
and your team.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
So there's technology, right? I mean, just
absolutely.
really running at it really quickly. I love the ideas that they're thinking about of making it when they're developing it in mind with where that I refer to it generally as a form factor, an age-friendly form factor, right? If you're the main market version of a Gmail is probably written, I'm going to imagine it's written for a much younger crowd that's utilizing Gmail, right?
I'm guessing a lot of technology is written for a younger crowd.
Right.
So with his product and marketing it and writing it and developing it directly for the older adults, I think it's genius.
So if you're out there, you're developing another product, if you're a business owner there, which everybody going through this is what we all are.
Right.
Think through that. Understand that if you've got those offerings that go in to help them come up, it really can help product adoption, not just for your product there, but also opening up, just diverging and diversifying that user base in a way where you can really understand the impact of your product, I think, across the board.
Right.
A lot better in good, responsible product development. So, well, let's maybe move through this. Let's talk about. You mentioned a little bit earlier about some of the scams that are starting to morph, and they're taking a little bit of this and a little bit of this, shaking it up, and
seeing what they come up with.
That's right. It's not a recipe for making love. It is a recipe for chaos.
Right.
You threw one in particular out, the pig butchering.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
You got that right.
And alive. Why don't you lead off with that? Tell us about what you're seeing in these anomalies of people putting it together, and maybe talk to us specifically about pig butchering and what that is.
So, scammers that have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And so they get to a point where they realize, okay, a lot of people have caught on to what we're doing, so we need to change things up, right? And so they'll take some aspects of one scam, some aspects of another scam, kind of put them together and come up with this whole new thing. And the more recent one that we've seen over the last few years that's been getting a lot of attention because a lot of people have fallen victim to it is called pig butchering.
Okay.
And they're taking some aspects from the romance scam and some aspects from the investment scam. So romance scam, normally you think about, okay, they're contacting you because they're going to profess their love for you in that grooming period. You might have just lost your partner or your spouse, and so they're targeting you, and they're going to the promise of marriage and being together and blah blah blah. Well, they're taking it, but it's not that much. It's more of they're befriending you. And I actually just recorded a podcast yesterday with a gentleman who came close to falling victim to this scam, but through some verification processes, he realized it was a scam.
Okay.
And the girl had befriended him, and she saw what he had posted on social media, what his interests were, and so she's came in with those common interests, right, which would help them, help him feel more comfortable with her. And then they are like, okay, let's take it off social media and let's go to WhatsApp, and then they do that. And then she starts talking about this crypto investment that she's in and how she's made so much money, and she'll show him some statements and all of this, and she's like, wow, you really should get involved in this, and who doesn't want to make more money, right? If you have the money to invest and be like, yeah, I'd love to get a 70% return, who wouldn't, right? And so you get excited about it, and right off the bat, he's like, how much should I invest? And she's like, 100,000. And he's like, oh, wait a minute, that's not in my league. That's not in my ballpark. I was thinking more of 100. And, she had answers for that. Right. And,
and it is interesting too, that they picked something that's technology, something that's moving fast, something there's probably not anybody that knows everything about that out there. Right. So it's not like it's a business that's going to be known to you that you could call, put a flag down and say, that doesn't sound right. That'd be hard.
It would. I mean, this gentleman in particular.
And moving an emotion at the same time. You're trying to impress and not let, oh man.
Well, the one thing that he mentioned was there were some bells going off in his head, like warning signs. And he listened to them and said, I'm not 100% comfortable with this. There's some things that just aren't making sense to me. And so he did a lot of research on the cryptocurrency and how it works and all of that stuff. And all of a sudden he comes across pig butchering scams.
Okay.
And so he starts reading about them. And he's like, wow, he had a list of these 10 things that they say the scammers do. And she nailed all 10 of them. She nailed all 10 of them, right? Wow. And so that, by his research and his verification, that's his way to verify, helped him, because, he might have put $1,000 into it, or 500 or 100, who knows?
Yeah.
But the point is he never would have seen that money again.
Yeah.
It would have been gone. And she would have continued to get him to invest more and more and more by showing him fake statements saying, you just put 1,000 in and now you're up to 1,500 already,
Right.
So,
man alive. So, and she was prepared to play that long game.
Exactly.
If it was, did he know if it was a she? I mean, was he in?
Well, the pictures that he was given was a girl and sounded like a girl. So his assumption is it was a girl, but with all this AI out there, they could have changed. It could be a guy changing his voice to sound like a girl. You just don't know. You just don't know.
Just playing on that heartstring.
Exactly.
Of loneliness,
right?
Of isolation, which we know affects everybody.
It does,
including us. Yeah. Okay. So pig butchering. Any ideas where the name comes from?
So, if my memory serves me, it came from someplace in Asia where they have their pigs and they fatten them up before they go to slaughter.
Got it.
So the whole being, establishing that friendship is the fattening you up before they're then going to slaughter you by taking your money. So I don't know who gave it that name, but that's the name.
That's where it's landed.
That's where it's landed.
Let's see. We've got, and I'm going through kind of a couple that we had talked through and had up onto the board today. Some of the family scams. Mm-hmm. You just mentioned some of the AI. Some of the family scams now that sit out there are starting to take a direction and use of AI.
Exactly.
More,
so the grandparents scam, they started out where they didn't know any of the names of the grandchildren. And then they evolved to finding the names of the grandchildren. And so now they had the names. Well, people have caught on to that. And so now if they have just a couple second recording of someone's voice through AI, they can take that recording and make it say the voice say whatever they want it to say. So now you answer the phone and it sounds just like your grandchild's voice and has the grandchild's name, and it makes it so much more believable. And even like on the romance scam, why they would never go on camera was because if you saw them, they looked nothing like the profile that they had built, right? Well, now through these deep fakes, they can, with AI, they can change what you see on, FaceTime or whatever.
Like a filter
Exactly.
in Instagram or anything else
exactly.
like that.
And make it look like the person in their profile.
Yeah.
So much to where you wouldn't probably see little
it's
nuances.
Enough, it's going to be right.
Exactly.
Right.
So...
And the more that they've scanned and they've looked on your social media to approach you from a place of familiarity,
they already know a lot about you.
Yeah.
Right?
So let's talk about protecting our family members against that. What are some of the top ways to protect family against those, now that that's kind of where it's starting to escalate?
Right. So if you have older adults, grandparents, aunts, uncles, parents, whoever it is, especially after their spouse or their partner have died and they might be on their own, because that just increases their chances of being contacted. But it's still good to have this conversation even before that, right?
Yeah.
Start having the conversation and start talking to them. And it's not to scare them. The conversation is to make them more aware and help push the education. But it also lets them know that, hey, I care, this is so important to me that I don't want this to happen to you. I want you to know that if you get contacted by anybody that you don't know and they're asking for your information, your money, whatever, hang up or don't respond, to the email, whatever it is, and call me. Yeah. Talk to me about it. I'm not going to yell at you, and even go, to say, if you do happen to fall victim to a scam, talk to me. I'm not going to be upset with you. I'm not going to yell at you. I want to have this conversation with you. Yeah. And just keep that line of communication open.
Well, and you've hit it. I mean, that is kind of the precursor. One of the best things I think we've learned from you over the years to lead off with is open conversation is really kind of an empathetic conversation.
Absolutely.
You have to, despite when it comes down to fraud, it is just one of there's a lot of things that are going to happen in your parent project. It tends to be one that you just really have to keep your cool about, because chances are it's probably going to happen again. Wherever they found that person to target them, someone else is going to come across that same targeting criteria.
And there's one other thing that I want to say in that respect is, a lot of people that I've talked to, they've said, oh, well, my parents are still very cognitively intact, and they're very smart and stuff like that, and that's great. We're not trying to say that if they fall for a scam they're not cognitively intact, because scams are emotional. It's emotions. It has nothing to do with your IQ or anything. Scammers don't send a questionnaire to want to find out what your IQ is or how much money you have before they decide that they're going to target you.
Right.
Everybody is a target, especially the older population, because of their philanthropic and trusting nature. And so don't just fall under that, where, oh, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen to my family. We're too smart. We're all still cognitively intact, and it's just not going to happen. It can happen. You will be targeted. Everybody will be targeted. And you can't rely on your IQ, and your cognition to be able to avoid a scam. So, because it's emotions, and we all do things.
We're blindsided by emotion.
Exactly. That's
completely,
blindsided.
It is a difficult thing to see at that time.
And you're not thinking rationally.
So let's talk through a couple of. So in addition to keeping that communication open when we're doing that, we've talked a couple of leveraging a little bit of technology to help us off of this side.
Right.
Monitoring situations.
Exactly.
Right. We've obviously had Catch AI on here that was talking to us about what could be done with monitoring email from that perspective, monitoring credit. Obviously,
Yeah,
we showed
absolutely.
up here with TransUnion, and kind of that
Right.
push and that wind at our back to say, yeah, it's evolving. There's a lot out there, and
Right.
that type of credit monitor. What's the tools like that? How can families, what are you suggesting, or when that comes up, what are your thoughts on
So
that today?
we suggest that everybody consider freezing their credit. It's not for everybody. I have mine frozen, and I had forgotten about it. But when I went to get my new phone, I had to
Yeah,
go home and unfreeze it and then go back, and so it took a little bit of extra time, but I was okay doing that. A lot of people that are retired, they don't necessarily need new credit, right? And so we highly suggest you freeze your credit, and you have to do it with all three credit reporting agencies.
right.
And it is very easy to unfreeze it. I went in and said, I want it unfrozen now, and I want you to refreeze it in 2 days. I put the date and the time, and then it automatically refreezes.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just a 2-day window, enough for me to do what I needed to do with the phone, right?
Right.
But what that does is it really helps protect you from having people stealing your identity and opening up all this credit in your name. And you might not know about it until you start getting sent to collections and stuff like that. But your credit cards, and if you freeze your credit, that doesn't affect any credit you currently have. That it doesn't. It's only going forward. But your credit cards, call the number on the back of the card, and you will need a magnifying glass to see that phone number.
Yes, you will.
You will. And call them and tell them, say, I want a notification of every transaction on my account. Or if you want to put a dollar amount to it, put a dollar amount to it. Because if you're the only one on the account and you get an email or a text that says, hey, there was just this charge, and you're like, that wasn't me, you can call and stop it. Versus waiting till you get your statement, and now you might have a month's worth of fraudulent charges. That takes a lot more time to try to fix versus 1 or 2 fraudulent charges, right? So that's another way to help nip that in the bud and protect yourself. Deed fraud is a really big one that's been going around, where it's in Arizona, it's very easy to fraudulently steal the title of someone's home. And they're targeting people that don't have any liens on their homes. And that happens to be a lot of the older adults, because they've spent their life working and making their house payments, and they've paid it off.
Yeah.
And so
because there's nobody in first position to confront it, or to take a position, no bank to say, whoa,
stop the process, right?
Right.
So we haven't found anything yet that's going to prevent that from happening. I know the legislatures are working through some stuff to close some loopholes. Nothing's been put through yet, but Maricopa, Pinal, and Yavapai counties all have alerts. If you go onto the county recorder's office, you can sign up for an alert, and you'll get notified right away if your title changes.
Right.
But you're still going to have to go through the process to get it back. And a lot of times that requires hiring an attorney. Yeah. Not everybody has the money to do that. So then my suggestion is talk to your insurance agent. Find out if in any of your policies, your homeowners, your umbrella, whatever it is, if somebody was to fraudulently take the title, is there something in that policy that will
pull back? Yeah,
that you could pull back and use it to pay for an attorney to get your property back?
Yeah. Well, I could see that being to the credit of an insurance company. That would make a lot of sense for them.
Exactly.
To be able to cover
and all the other counties in Arizona have till next year to get those alerts put in place. So we're making progress. We're making steps towards that, but it's just coming up with what exactly, make it harder. If you can make it harder for the scammers to do these things, they're going to go find something else, right?
Yeah, I think that is a great place to set in. We're gonna take a quick break. We have got a word that we want to come up and give an opportunity to share with TransUnion and their products that they offer to help families that are working through this understand and track their family. So stand by. We'll be back.
Our connected lifestyle puts everyone's personal information at risk, whether you're at home, working remotely, or in an office. With many organizations experiencing data breaches and phishing scams, the stats are alarming, and no one is immune, not even the U.S. government. In fact, Seniors lose $3 billion a year to financial scams, and working adults lose over $2 billion a year. Even children are targets for identity theft, and those numbers increase every year. We're all at risk of losing control of what we spend every day of our lives creating, our identity. So, how should we protect it? Identity Force provides continuous and comprehensive 24/7 monitoring of your identity, privacy, and credit. Identity Force continuously scans dark places of the web where sensitive information is bought and sold. So if a thief attempts to use your personal information, rest assured you'll get rapid alerts so you can take immediate action, and Identity Force is always working hard to protect you. With our mobile app, you're also alerted about spyware, unsecured Wi-Fi connections, and spoofed networks. You'll also get access to your very own virtual private network, or VPN, to encrypt your data being sent or received so hackers can't access your information. Identity Force offers anywhere, anytime protection, allowing you to take immediate action before damage is done. And if something should happen, Identity Force provides comprehensive restoration and recovery services. Don't just protect what you have, protect who you are. Put Identity Force's award-winning identity theft protection solutions to work for you. Whether for you personally or to protect your employees, get started with an Identity Force trial today and start protecting what matters most.
And welcome back to the Present Dangers podcast. And myself, Joyce Petroski from R.O.S.E, are sitting down and we are having some conversations about those latest, the greatest scams that we're seeing this quarter. This is a quarterly show that we put together with a lot of wind at our back and a lot of great cheerleaders out there to help us stay forward. One of the things that comes up is we talked about it a little bit earlier, but families, this is something that a lot of people just avoid until the moment they can't avoid it. So our hope is that this is a resource that's indexed well enough that you can come down to, you can find that practical advice. Chances are, if you're seeing this, it's probably not the best day that you've had. And we're sorry for that. We understand that comes through. Others, we're hoping that this helps you get in front of stuff. But, once finding yourself and getting yourself into a position of dealing with it, I think is kind of a hard part. And with that, I wanted to really kind of focus as we start running towards the end of the show about some real things that we can do to stop maybe the bleeding of it. And maybe a family's just gone through a scam and they're trying to slow from somebody else targeting them and coming back at them or working through that. You've talked before about ways to slow things down and to get everybody to pay attention and to work from there. Some notes in different places and others.
Right.
Why don't you talk to us about that?
Well, so notes in different places are great because it's a constant reminder. If your phone is usually sitting on a table next to where your recliner or your couch where you normally sit, have that note there. Maybe it's a notepad and you've got it written on a notepad. That just it could be something as was I expecting this call? Or was I expecting this email, right? It might be a scam. And it's just a reminder. But also the conversation that we talked about, continuing those conversations to talk about these different things. What that does is it ingrains in our mind. Because our whole goal is we want everyone, but our target market right now is the older adults, that when they get any unexpected contact, we want automatically for the hair on the back of their neck to stand up and for them to think scam.
Okay.
Not to scare, or someone to scare somebody, but just scam to think, okay, I need to slow down. I need to not react. Let me think about this. And in that process, you can then verify.
Yeah.
If it's something with Amazon and you have an Amazon account, that stopping and slowing down gives you time to then log on to your Amazon account and check things out, right?
Yeah.
And you can do that with a lot of other accounts, or you can do research on, the internet. And all you can, a lot of times what you do is whatever it is you're being presented with, just type it in the search bar and put scam or fraud after it and see what comes up. Because if there's a scam out there that's happened to other people, it's going to be on the internet
Yeah,
someplace,
chances are,
right?
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
But have that trusted person. So again, that family member with that, or it could be a friend, that you can have that conversation with, that you could, as you're stopping and slowing down and thinking, you can call them and say, hey, I was just contacted. They want me to do this. What do you think? And have that conversation.
So what I'm hearing in good, you're looking to slow it down at the point of conversation. So
Yeah.
around phone, around where the computer might be for emails,
Right.
around the door, maybe the
right?
door,
Because
right?
they are, they do sometimes knock on the door.
Yeah, we had somebody try to talk their way into our home,
Yeah.
pretending to be a roofing contractor.
Yeah.
That was just early in the neighborhood. They were going to stop and offering to meet the appointment early. I was gone. My wife had the foresight just to be like, he didn't have a vehicle that he walked up out of, not quite sure, and took that time to slow down and text. But, that's, had it honestly been maybe 30 minutes later with her 1 foot out the door headed to the airport, that could have gone a very different direction.
Exactly.
And
Right.
we could have been one of the 14 people that got broken into in our neighborhood over the course of the last month.
Oh, wow.
So those are, I mean, it happens, but slowing that game down
Right.
there and creating a plan ahead of time to know who to talk to.
Exactly.
And how to check it. So how do you verify before you trust?
Right.
Who am I going to talk to? What's my
Right.
plan going to be to verify before
Exactly.
I trust?
That's a very important point, having that plan.
Yeah.
And, you don't have to write the whole plan out on all those notes,
Right.
but you could have,
You just need something to start it.
Exactly.
You just yeah.
That will
Right.
start your brain going, okay, I have this plan. Let's follow through with this plan.
Yeah.
Not what they're asking me to do, not what they're telling me. Let's follow through with the plan.
I've heard some families now that are using passwords differently,
Right.
or a family story, like a password.
Mm-hmm.
That would be that if grandma called or got a call about something like that, they would be able to call and they'd be able to ask for a specific password. That's
Right.
a family password, or it's a safe word, or what are you seeing with that?
I've heard a lot of people talk about that, but I go back to this one video that I watched, and it was somebody out on the street just going up and talking to people, didn't know these people, just going up and talking to them, striking up conversation as simple as, oh, do you have pets? And they're, oh yeah, I have this sweet little cat, or this dog. And they're like, oh wow. And then they all of a sudden slip in, well, what's your password? And they'll be like, oh, it's Spike, and then my, the name of my dog, and then my birthday, June 5th, whatever.
Yeah.
And then the person's doing this to see who's going to give, just tell them the password. And so I hesitate with that being the end all be all, because if you've got a password that you have with your family or a story, you have to be so confident that no one else knows that password.
Sure.
No one else knows that story.
Sure.
And you got to be confident that whoever knows that password, and then all of a sudden someone's befriending them and they're all of a sudden building that trust. And then they start asking them questions, and they'll be like, oh yeah, our password's purple, but don't tell anybody because I'm not supposed to tell anybody. Right.
Yeah.
So you just have to keep that in mind if that's the route you want to go.
Yeah.
It does help in a lot of situations, but just keep that in mind.
And I think I think any one thing being an end all be all these days could get you into trouble.
Right.
It is really
it's
come in
not.
a lot of directions. So
Right.
being vigilant, verifying, and then trusting.
Exactly.
Right? Verify and then trust instead of the other way around.
Exactly.
As we were taught as kids.
Exactly.
So, but
don't trust first, verify.
verify. And that might be a sad part from that, but I imagine something's going to come of this that will be good, and we'll figure something out as in this new environment from that. So, well, Joyce, I appreciate being able to sit down with you again.
Absolutely. I love this. I can't wait for the next one.
Me neither. Me neither. Although hopefully this is going to find you in a better spot. And you haven't, by the next time that we sit down, you're not going to be subject to this. But if you find yourself facing some of those present dangers out there, feel free to turn to us. We'll be up here quarterly. I'm Tony Sieber with Joyce Petroski, and we're here to help those families that are going through these situations and be able to protect yourself. So we'll see you next time, and thanks for joining us today. Well, that's it for the team this week, and thanks for joining us. If you've enjoyed the content, remember to subscribe and to share this episode on the app that you're using right now. Your reviews and your comments, they really help us expand our reach as well as our perspective. So if you have time, also drop us a note. Let us know how we're doing. For tips and tools to clarify your parent project, simplify communication with your stakeholders, and verify the professionals that you choose, you can find us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for trusting us. Until our next episode, behold and be held.
Thank you for listening to this Parent Projects podcast production. To access our show notes, resources, or forums, join us on your favorite social media platform or go to parentprojects.com. This show is for informational and educational purposes only. Before making any decisions, consult a professional credentialed in your local area. This show is copyrighted by Family Media and Technology Group Incorporated and Parent Projects LLC. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcast.